Nothing on this show is authorized by the Food and Drug Administration, and nothing said here is intended to treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose any disease. Contact your physician before starting a diet or exercise regimen, including supplementation. This is not medical advice and is for entertainment purposes only.
Now, you really wouldn't expect a bunch of Morgan Wallen and country music, but we're here on this episode of the Supp podcast with Shaheen Majid, and you are the global president, or you're the head honcho here completely at Sammy Savinsa.
Yeah, so officially it's global CEO and managing director, but head honcho works too.
You're like, there's nobody hired.
No, our employees, our customers always hire me.
Oh, that's a good philosophy to have.
Yeah.
So I was really excited when we were doing our trip to India, and I would be remiss if we did not come here to like what I consider to be like the top manufacturer of all things Ayurvedic, who blazed the trail in the supplement industry when it came to all these different kind of herbs. And like, I don't know, how does it feel to have someone come all the way from the United States to fangirl over what you guys are doing here?
No, I love it. I appreciate it. It's wonderful having you here. And I know we spend a little bit of time kind of walk around the campus and stuff. And we have so much more to show you.
Oh, yeah.
But that reputation of, trailblazing, it's fascinating to me that we're seen that way. We don't stop here and think about that often enough. And sometimes we need to do that. So I'm hoping I can share some of those stories that made us who we are today and what some of those stories would be, where it takes us.
So just a brief thing. We also have a co-host here. Mr. You Go Beyond Uday Gasalia. What's up?
What's up, party people? How's it going? Great to be here with you, Joey. I was on the other side of this only a few months ago. This is I was in.
He was our guest.
I was in Shaheen's seat,
and he said you guys have to come to India, and it was that brought us here. That who knows what other kind of serendipitous things may happen. So I kind of wanted to get into like first. Usually, what we do in our podcast is like the background story, like the history of Savinsa. So like, can you give like our listeners like a bit of a timeline of what that's been like? Because it's been since the 80s, right?
Sure, yeah, it's been since the 80s. I can give you the boilerplate.
Sure.
But I'd rather give you something else that...
Your perspective is probably the best.
So it was circa 1983, and Dr. Majid, my father, who passed away 2 years ago, he was working for pharmaceutical companies, the top ones, Pfizer, Cardawalis, etc. And he had a few ideas. Now, he's in the United States. He's doing his master's, getting into his PhD program, etc. And he says, I'd like to do something on my own. He's always had this entrepreneurial, skill set, mindset. And he tried to start something, and he had partners with him, and it tanked. It failed. His partners cheated him. A couple of years later, and according to my mom, maybe about 42 credit cards in, he started Savinsa. So he did finally step away from all the pharmaceutical companies. Heck, he was an operator for a tableting machine down in Texas somewhere.
Oh, wow.
So he did all these things. So all these bits and parts of him will culminate to a greater story of Savinsa in a second here. 1988, enough credit cards, he launches Savinsa, and it was actually a company out of Utah that was looking for a bark of a tree. So, they somehow find him, and they say, "Hey, Majid, can you get this bark for us?" And he goes, "What do you need the bark for?" Majid, "Don't worry about it. We're going to crush it, put it in a capsule. It's going to be a good day." And he goes, "No, that doesn't sound right at all. Can you get us the bark?" "Okay, I'll get you the bark," because hey, he's got to put food on the table and feed his family. But as he's getting this bark, he's a PhD, so he's researching what's in this bark, what's going on, and that ultimately leads to discovering molecules that would be beneficial to human health and pet care, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really the beginnings, if you will, of Savinsa's understanding into the natural product industry. And they wanted more than the bark. A lot more companies wanted more than the bark. And that's how we got into standardizing natural products out of Indian origin from Ayurveda. And my father really stuck onto that and studied it. Now, you come to India, you can find Ayurveda everywhere, as you should.
Yeah.
But what made Ayurveda work what was the molecule? What was, and how do you reproduce it consistently?
Yeah.
And that became the word standardization. And so him with his pharmaceutical background and having this very, I would say at that time, innocent and naive marketplace, he could bridge that gap together and give the community what would really work. So that was really the beginning of Sabinsa. 1988, incorporated in New Jersey. And then about 1991, he realized in those 3 years, every time he asked for, getting products out of India, maybe it started off as yellow, as turmeric should.
Yeah.
But by the third shipment, it was brown powder. And that wasn't turmeric. That was just plain old dirt.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what, I probably have to get to India myself and do some digging and some research. And so in 1991, he came over here. And at that time, he started a company called Supp. So maybe I should step back even a little bit more. Sabinsa is my mother's name. And I always make the joke that my dad couldn't have come home and called it Susan. So Sami, S-A-M-I, that's my oldest sister's name.
Yeah.
I have two older sisters, Sami and Anju. And so Sami Chemicals and Extracts was started back in 1991. But at that time, that was just putting people on the ground and making sure he's getting turmeric as turmeric should be, he's getting boswellia as boswellia should be, et cetera, et cetera. But more importantly, the time frame around 1993 came and we put our own first factory in India. So those were some of the humble beginnings, learning which products can make a helpful impact, what our customers asking for, and then standardizing.
Was it inspiring for you as a kid, like kind of growing up around this entrepreneurial environment and like seeing him fail and be like, no, I'm not going to stop. And then, coming back and be like, not only am I going to come back, but I'm going to go ahead and establish factories at the source.
I'm going to love answering this. I had no idea what was going on.
It was all secret ops.
And as a great of a leader he was, I do now recognize how great of a father he was because he never let me know that he failed.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant.
So take that in for a second. So I didn't know there was 42 credit cards until years after. I mean, I'm talking almost 25 years after the whole, that whole story started coming to me. I was just shocked. But as far as me getting into the business, culturally, I was assigned the task. And I think our Indian brothers out there will certainly understand that. And a lot of cultural people will understand how well-tuned a family upbringing will say, hey, you're not going to do anything else, you're going to do this. Might be different these days. I have 3 kids of my own. I'm going to certainly introduce them to the business and get them excited by it. But at the same time, I didn't have much of a choice.
Well, that's another thing that's been like a recurring theme. We went to 2 different facilities yesterday where they were family business. And second generation, it's their fathers that had started it, and then they were inheriting the business. It's like this is a recurring theme that we've noticed from facility to facility. And I kind of romanticize it. I think it's kind of neat. And I was like,
well, I romanticize it.
I wish I could do this.
Well,
for
there
my
was
children.
there was an example. We'll leave the company name out of it, but the idea that the only child of a factory owner, a factory producer, extremely proficient man, highly intelligent, chemical engineer.
Yep.
The son, also chemical engineer, but definitely not going to be the leader of the company. It's not his fault. It's just not his skill set. So they had to find a wife that was going to be the complement.
Wow.
And it was an arranged marriage. Now, the idea of that in India is still relevant. And we're not talking about dowries or anything like that. We're talking about royalty. The idea of, hey, how do we carry this legacy forward? And the family has to be all in. Am I right?
Absolutely. 100%.
So did you kind of anticipate that you would end up filling these shoes one day? And what was it? I don't know. It's kind of like tough feeling that pressure growing up that, eventually like I'm going to have to shoulder the burden of this. I'm going to call it an empire because it is one day. Like, tell me a little bit more about like your backstory of like feeling that pressure, the stuff you did when you went to school and like, trying to like kind of get ready for it.
So when I was very young, from what I remember, I slept on the floor. I mean, we couldn't afford a second mattress. So I didn't see an empire, right? I didn't know what my father was going to work for. I didn't see all of that. And he kept it very simple for me. And I'll explain that. I knew what my last name was. I knew we then had this building in the warehouse, and we were getting products in these blue drums, and so business is there. And he wasn't working for anybody else. But when I got into the business, I didn't work for him. He assigned me to the warehouse. My first boss was an retired military.
Yeah.
I still remember her, Mickey. 6 a.m. pick orders. We stand in line. I never got a pick order. I got a broom and a shovel.
You had to start from the bottom.
Very bottom. Then moved on into customer service. A very tough department because, customer service has to not only process the orders, but people were upset that they didn't get the order on time, et cetera, et cetera. We weren't as bad as some of the other customer service stories out there.
Where are you living when this is happening?
This was all in New Jersey. Yeah. So I grew up in Jersey. I went to Rutgers, all that good stuff.
No way.
But yeah, so as I went into the company, he made sure that I progressed in the right way through the departments, and there was no favoritism to me. Nothing was given to me just because I was Dr. Majid's son. I had to earn it, and in many ways, I still feel like I'm trying to earn it, and rightfully so. So there's credit to the employees that work here, that I just don't try to oversee them or overlook them, that they're part of this business.
Yeah.
So yeah, he brought me up through the ranks, if you will.
So when you went to Rutgers, what were you studying at Rutgers?
I ended up doing economics. I'm not a scientist by degree. I remember Chem 101. And the first day of class, I walk in, and that's when you realize how small you are. There was also 300 kids in the class.
Yeah.
And the professor was tinier than an ant. And I was 5 minutes late, so I'm already in the back. And I'm like, this is not going to work. I'm not going to learn this. And I didn't. I dropped Chem. And again, culturally, I thought maybe not a PhD, but I would have to be a scientist. I do remember when I was the ages of 12 to 15, going with my father to Rutgers Medical Library and having a copy card and going to the copy machine with all the books that he read because we couldn't check them out. And he
It's because you were a student and you had access to all of it too.
Well, but this was way before. I mean, he used to go in there and we used to see all these books. He would mark them. I'd go make photocopies of medical journals that he would read, for the next few weeks and come up probably with a new product. Again, I didn't connect those dots until many years later. So, as my upbringing was through this company, I always related every experience I had with something I had in another department. So if a customer called me and said, hey, Shahid, we didn't get the order. Well, I'd walk back to the warehouse and I would say, hey, everything okay? What's going on? Because I know my warehouse.
Yeah.
And I know the people
you came
there.
from there.
And I came from there. So he said, oh, we're shorthanded. We got this. All right, let's roll up the sleeves. Let's do this. So, you take from that story, you take it into sales, you take it into marketing. So I'm always interconnecting different departments and what all they can do. And that was at one stance when we were just in New Jersey, with the warehouse in New Jersey. We grew out to Utah with our second facility.
When was that? What year?
We dug ground in 1999. We had a...
That's only like a few years after Deshea.
Yeah, absolutely.
5 years.
And it probably took I'm 2002 in the industry, so I know even by 2002, Deshea was still...
Fresh.
Yeah, it was 7 years fresh. So in 1999, you're going into the teeth of MLM land.
Well, we had a really particular employee that we had moved, him and his family, to New Jersey from Utah. And that was probably around, I want to say between 94 to 96. And he lived out in Utah for about 3 years. And then he told my dad, I'm going to have to leave. I need to get back to, the motherland. I need to get back to Utah. Yeah. And my dad said, well, I don't want to let you go. Oh, wow. And I remember that dinner that we had together. And my father said to him, hey, I don't want to let you go. Why don't you get back to Utah? And let's look at some land. Let's see what's out there for us. Knowing that, some of the first businesses came from Utah.
There's a lot of customers in Utah.
There could be something there for us.
Yeah.
So he went back, he found a piece of land that was literally behind him. We joke that it's his backyard. But we flew out there, surveyed the land. It was good. It was great. The city was great to work with. There's a picture of my father with the gold shovel and the first dirt lifted. In 1999, we built the factory. And it was warehouse, basically, and a couple of sales offices. We did some blending and mixing. Customers there always would say, hey, I buy product A and B. Why don't you just
do a pre-blend? Yeah.
But then 2005, we expanded it, and we can talk about that as well.
So you start this one in Utah, and now you have like 2 different locations in the United States. You got New Jersey And so when did the facility start here in India?
In India, we put our first facility in 1993.
Okay.
And remember, he had people here on the ground in 91 that could call him and, you know, this is another good story. A certificate of analysis back in 1991 was just one page, maybe about 5 or 6 lines. You had the name of the product, probably had our product code, the color, right? Maybe density, you know, very few properties you put on a page. Our C of A today is more than 4 pages long.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that have come up over time. But we needed people on the ground to check even those 5 lines. But then he realized, hey, you know what? I don't want to have somebody else make it. I want to make it myself so I can control it.
Yeah.
And I can control it in a consistent manner. And so that's when 1993 we put a facility here in India, the first.
So was it here in Bangalore?
It was, yeah.
Okay. And I asked because I think like access to a port city might have been a smarter kind of play, but
I think it was the weather.
It's the climate.
We talk about it quite a bit because my father is from Kerala, India. But you guys may not know this. I love Kerala, so I need to preface it before what I say next. But there's a lot of unions there, and you know, getting them to work might have been a challenge to him. He felt, and he was also a politician down in Kerala in his younger days.
Wow.
He had long hair. You know, he was a rebel without a cause kind of fella. Yeah, my father was. Yeah, there's great stories about him. So he knows the government and the politics of Kerala. And he said, hey, you know, that might be not the best place for me to put a factory. Let me look around. And he just fell in love with Bangalore, like many people did. But then, you know, we became just the only herbal extraction company here. Everybody else that came really came far after us, or they were in IT. Because Bangalore is really known, you know, for the IT sector, not for herbal industry.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and it's since the 90s like grown into this, you know, kind of one of the top cities in India.
Oh yeah.
And it's been the third place that we've gone to on our trip. It's my favorite one so far. Because we've been to Mumbai, to Pune, and then now we're here in Bangalore. And I love that it feels like there's a little more order here than there is. Like, people pay attention to the rules of the road. It's cleaner. The air is nice. Like, I definitely think this was a good pick. And the weather is, like, a lot better than it was where we were previously.
I would add to that the quality of the craft here, the skill set of the people here. Not to say anything negative about any other city in India, but the craft that we've seen here and our one other location outside of Bangalore in a place called Hyderabad, I think we get some of the best workers for our industry.
It feels like they're ambitious.
Were you talking about Silicon Valley 1.0 and Silicon Valley 2.0 with those 2 cities, Bangalore and Hyderabad? That's obviously driven by the weather. Now, you would say right now we're in the southern part of India?
Yeah.
We're south.
Yeah, Bangalore.
And when you say Kerala, south.
Way south.
So as the resident, I'm born and raised in New York City, but there's a cowboy inside me and there's an Indian inside me. Hence, this is a Cowboys and Indians trip. What's really important to distinguish is within India, there are 2 distinct countries.
Yes.
Northern India and South India.
Yes.
And you coming from South India it's and you know, Dr. Majid being from South India, it's not a surprise he's a PhD. How many PhDs are down there? Mothers and fathers are PhDs. Like, it's the prerequisite.
Almost all of them.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
And the dominant language is English. It makes it a universal place to do business. I mean, it's unequivocally an academic center,
Absolutely.
Southern India. And so the absolute distinction between North and South India, academic, not to take anything away from Northern India, okay? But South India also, from a spiritual and cultural standpoint, the most preserved
Yes.
in terms of ancient connection to ancient India and authentic Ayurveda.
Yes.
Because the North was conquered. But there was a lot that was lost and muddied.
Yes.
So how does that play? How does that play into the Sammy Sabinsa story?
Well, I think going back to what I said, you know, the skill set of the people that we have here is prime. And I think it's because of how well kept their culture has been. You know, it hasn't been dominated by a different segment. We've been authoritative in our language and the holding of English here to help spread the technology. And so those things differ quite a bit from the North. When we have visitors, media people, company people that come, auditors that come, or, you know, companies that want to come audit us. I do tell them, hey, there's many parts of India here, oh, should we be scared about eating this food or that food? I said, hold on. What you eat in the South, that's not exactly in the North.
North India. I grew up eating idli dosa at dinner.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That's a staple breakfast item in the South.
Yeah.
I had to go to a South Indian friend's house, and they were like, I was like, you eat idli dosa in the morning? And the mom sat me down and gave me a lecture and said, you Northerners don't know about us. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah, that's right. It's tough. I mean, growing up in New Jersey, we had Indian restaurants very, very scarce in the beginning, but they were all North Indian food based, and so we didn't have to go to an Indian restaurant. We cooked at home, but if we wanted to, we couldn't get our food out there. It was different, but Jersey's now,
Yeah, you
many
get
parts of
everything
it.
you
Yeah,
want.
many parts of it is Little Indian. So.
You're touching on food. I just wanted to touch on that from the health and wellness standpoint. The South Indian diet lends itself to a healthier, a health and wellness lifestyle, organically, without even the education. Just being raised on idli, dosa, coconut chutney,
I'll give you an example. You guys,
moringa. I'm sorry,
Moringa. Have you done the banana leaf?
not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
You got to put that down, banana leaf. Okay, remember that.
Okay.
When you do, this is going to connect to a particular diet system that the Westerners are following, which is proportions, right? Because you're either counting calories or whatever you're doing, you need your specific portions. Nothing does it better than what goes on in that banana leaf. When you experience it, you'll know exactly what I mean. There's a portion of this chutney. There's a portion of this curry. There's a portion of this rice. It's all proportionate. And so, yes, it lends to your conversation about their diet. Yes.
And so even without you being thrust into the business, but you understand health and wellness from an organic, holistic,
Very much.
just this is my normal life.
So I took a fascination for the science when I was able to do it hands-on.
Yeah.
And I think, again, credit to Dr. Majid, my father. He hired some brilliant scientists. He also lived by a very particular philosophy. Hire people smarter than you, right? And then soak it.
Yeah.
I mean, just be a sponge. And so we had a lab in the state of New Jersey. It was in Princeton. And that was my summer job. I would go. What was the summer job? I was cleaning the utensils and, getting the pipes all, nice and shiny. We had to, But there I was with the scientists, and they said, hey, what, you want to take on a project? Yeah, absolutely. What are we looking at? And then they would start talking to me, and I would just glaze over them. They go, okay, Chem 101, this is what it looks like. This is what it's going to do. Mix it together, see the reaction. Okay, write down the notes. Okay, got it. Now repeat it.
Over and over
And over and over. And then you get your next project. So when I became hands-on, it's one of those, it's like in the movies when the molecules start making sense and you're seeing it in front of you, right? And everything just, the universe, you found the meaning of the universe kind of deal.
Yes.
I found that in the lab, and no joke, we were making a product called Chrysin out there, and we were one of 2 labs in the world that was working on that molecule. And the rush was, we got to get it done before then. It was a French lab that was
arms
doing
race.
it, and it was us, and we got it done. It was fast.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. So those things, once I became hands-on with it, then the science and the conversation. And then you meet somebody like Dr. Shivakumar, or you meet Dr. Bummi, Dr. Natarajan, all these scientists that my father had here in my travels, coming from the sales world in U.S., because I started selling Sabinza ingredients. But when I started traveling here and visiting the factories and the R&D center, I would say, hey, we only sell it for this. Well, what else are you working on? What else are you doing? Just being curious and asking those questions, and then hearing the scientists say stuff back to you. Oh my goodness, there's more we can connect now.
Yeah.
Right? And what more can I take back? And that was so important, because when I got back to the customer, I said, wait, this product does way more than what we initially said. We're working on this now. And this is going to be the next set of bullet points, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where my excitement came from.
So how old are you when you're playing around in the lab in Princeton? Did you already go to that Chem 101 class?
No, I dropped it by then. So yeah.
So that's a really
Early
interesting.
20s.
So you must have had a existential. Well, let me ask. Did you have an existential crisis when you exit that chemistry 101 class and you're like, uh-oh? Is it uh-oh, or is it like?
Of course it was. Yeah, I had to go home
Better
and tell
not
my
tell
dad.
dad.
I had to tell him, right?
Because listen, this is a cultural thing.
Yeah. Of course.
right? You cannot. No one wants to disappoint their dad, especially an only son in an Indian family.
I'm pretty sure he was disappointed when I said my major is,
Economics?
Econ. Yeah, it's econ, right?
Well, that brings a whole different perspective to his business that could be extremely helpful. And
you try to stay positive about it, but I know deep down inside he goes, "Where's the chem?" My sister Anju, she went on. She's got a double master's. She's got a PhD in microbiology, so she's the brainiac. She's got the brains for
She's
science.
about that.
okay.
Yeah. I came about it in a different way. Mine had to be more hands-on, more applicable, more curiosity, not from textbook, and from conversations. And that's what got me excited, and just questioning stuff. And it wasn't always because I had to question something to get or to derive a feeling. It was so that we could make something better, and my understanding could be better.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the what and the why is not important to some people. Sometimes the how is.
Yeah. Well, I have a nephew who's a lot like this, and I have him work in my lab, and he makes samples and all kinds of stuff like all day long. And he just had like a college math test, and he's like, if I didn't do what I did in the lab, then I would not have done near as well on this test. And it's like, he didn't even know that he was going to be taught that. It was just something that he was doing repetitively, that like the experience you had where it all just kind of clicked, and he was like, having that aha moment. And sometimes it has to happen that way. So your education in economics, have you seen that, like, learning about that? And I mean, do you have like, I don't know, maybe like a burden to prove that what you've learned through school and everything is going to help you take Sabinsa to the next level?
Some things, yes. I mean, if you can imagine a time and place when we had to talk about tariffs, sure, the economic degree came in really useful.
I'm sure it has now.
Went right into it. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's
extremely relevant.
They're open geopolitical affairs. I mean, if you can't talk about that subject, then you're naked.
And at my level, it matters.
Yeah.
Because it's going to affect everything we do at Sabinsa.
Ripple effect. We talked about the livelihoods, the number of Indian families in India, the onus, and this is just from my own experience through family that are employing thousands of people, and the livelihoods that this company is sustaining. How much, beyond the pressure, but now you have to make delicate decisions, articulate conversation, and then you can't put them at jeopardy.
Right.
Yet you got to keep the business, and so there's so much there, and your economic background that plays into it.
Yeah, if you look at the business in general, I mean, economics, you learn about the macro issues, you learn about the micro issues. When I look at Sabinsa's portfolio, I look at, what are the greater benefits and what do I need to dig in more so the customers benefit greater from it. I wouldn't say there's a one-to-one application. School, most of the time, is about the discipline of getting things done. And that's where a lot of kids ultimately fail, because they can't get things done. And so I view it from that point of view, my education, but the tariff situation was
It's
also
functional.
interesting.
You use school as a function
Right.
to accelerate your natural skills. You already kind of had a sense of confidence, I'm guessing, going into school.
No, the confidence came from something else.
Yeah, tell me.
So, I don't know how to put the pretense here, but I was a terrible salesperson. But by the time I got into the sales department, I had very good mentors, some of the best in the industry. I had the gentleman that had to move back to Utah. He stayed on with us, and I got to go on sales trips with him. Very humble, the humility factor 100. The way he spoke and the way he described the product, it was great. It was just wonderful to listen, and he exposed the technology really well. On the other hand, I had a salesperson from New York that was literally from New York.
Yeah,
and
New Yorker.
It's in your face, and you don't buy it. You're the bad guy. You don't know what you're talking
You're an
about. My
idiot.
product is the bad.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to both ends of the world here, and I'm trying to find the middle ground, right? And
That's Texas.
well, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. And I don't know what I did wrong in those days. I do try to analyze it so I could help people out. But from the sales, something else came about, which was there was an event that was happening, and they needed some kind of banner stand. And I said, I can do that. I don't know where I thought I could do it, but I quickly did a banner stand, got printed. They took it to the event. It was great. They had a great event. Showed it off. They showed it off. The banner came back to Utah, and it was in our lobby. My father didn't visit Utah much, but when he did like the day after that banner came to the Utah. He goes, "Who did this?" And the gentleman that was heading up the office there, he said, "I'll tell you at the end." At the end, they had a conversation about me. They said, "Hey, maybe your son isn't cut out for sales, but he's got an eye for marketing."
Yeah.
And long and behold, I had to drive my father back to the airport, and it's about an hour away. He was quiet for 45 minutes. He didn't talk to me, so I was like, "Oh, he's really upset." Right? Like 5 minutes right before reaching the airport, he goes, "You know, son, maybe some people aren't cut out for sales. Why don't you give this marketing thing a try? Let's see what you can do." So I got into the marketing. We didn't have a marketing department. You know, what people think about Savinsa, it might be something else, but no, we didn't. You know, we had people who worked on things. We didn't have it department-wise, but I became the department of one in the marketing, and you know, I got to work on the logos. I got to work on the typeset, the fonts. You'll love this stuff, right? But I got to work on the bullet points that the salespeople would have to repeat.
Beautiful.
So I got to work directly with the scientists, and I would push them to their limits as much as I could from US FDA,
Right. Within
disclaimer.
reason.
This is where you put the disclaimer.
We literally have an FDA disclaimer before this podcast starts.
So I would go up to that edge and see what we could do and match the images. And I was all about, hey, let's show the image. Let's show the plan. Right? And so, it just felt like home. Like
So before storytelling was actually a part of our common vernacular, you found a purpose in storytelling.
And then it wasn't just with our scientists. Then I found, hey, let's go to the farm.
Yeah.
This is before the media companies. Everybody took. So they got to know. Shaheen went to the farm. Oh, we would like to go to the farm. And then I would say, yeah, come with me. I would say that to customers. I would say that to media people. We go to the farm. We go to the factory. That part, that just felt right.
That's where the magic is.
Yeah.
If you told me, Shaheen, that's what you got to do, it wouldn't have made sense if you told me.
Yeah.
I had to do it and experience it myself.
So India is a place where a lot of times when we're talking about the importance of experience, that experiential. And you mentioned something about how we're always, we're releasing certain chemicals in our brain every night when we dream.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I kind of wish I could feel that. You're like, hey, just go to sleep.
Yeah.
And you don't know all the chemicals that are being. And when I started looking at last night, when I went to sleep, I thought about the experience of that sleep. What you come out of these experiences with is understanding. Like it's called Anubhav and Samjan. And without Anubhav, experience, you can't have Samjan, which is understanding.
Yeah.
It's the essence. Like in India, in the Gita, it talks about that. Krishna is talking to Arjun, not to lecture, not to preach. He's asking him to go experience that fight. And then from that, you will get the understanding.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, I love it. Can I get a little technical with that?
By all
Break
means.
it down, baby.
So the smells that you have in India, the fragrances, the aromatics,
All the roses.
the food, right? That lends to experience, right? That lends to stress relief. I mean, it lends to increased cognitive behavior. Whoa, wait a second, Shaheen. What are you talking about? Yes, it is. It's all here in nature. The technical part of it is we have a company called Organica Aromatics. I'm not trying to pitch for them, but they do flavors and fragrances.
How did I not know about this?
So there's an essence that we work on. There are essences that we work on. These are vials that would cost, they're like little, and they're $30,000, $40,000, right?
That's why you got your own supercritical CO2 extraction.
Also, step into a hotel these days. What do they primarily focus on? And what do they sell now? They sell what you smell.
That beautiful rose smell every time.
Why is that? Because they want you hooked on that, right?
It
they
makes
want
you
to
feel like
experience
happy.
it.
I don't
The
know.
Amex Lounge in all these airports, they have a proprietary scent.
Really?
Yeah. So when you go into an Amex,
It is.
and my man,
So,
TK.
so that, believe it or not, I would bet anything it was an experience people had when they came to a country like India.
Yeah.
They just needed to find a way to lock it down and brand it and get it into these places. Yeah. So that's the only technical part I wanted.
No,
There's
that's
something there.
No, absolutely. I was telling we were talking earlier, and I was like, when I'm around certain elements, I get very philosophical, but this industry has put a tangible, this industry supplements, it's allowed me to put philosophical interest into what we're doing, driving partners together, driving chemical, the way you work with a chemistry
Well,
lab.
specifically, Ayurveda is a very spiritual, practice of medicine. Like there's a lot to it that and all those different ancient texts, like the Rasyana Shastra and all that stuff, where it's like telling you how to use these different plants with the different energies that are moving through your body and all that kind of stuff. And it's the roots of that ancient wisdom tied in with this modern science that bring the philosophical and the technical together. And I think that's why this is like such a heck of a ride as far as an industry.
And I don't think we've decoded even 1%.
Not at all.
Well, that's a good point. We were just talking about how the number of what we're fixated on, like we're a copycat industry. So the plant could have multiple actives, and we're just fixated for a decade at a time on one or two.
Well, we talked about this in the supercritical CO2 extraction unit. We're talking about when you take turmeric, you take the curcuminoids out, and that's an easy part. But then there's all these other things like the tumerones. And then you were talking about how after you chop the root off, there's a whole other aerial part of the plant that is yet to be really discovered as far as what's in it. And you guys are blazing trails on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we don't ignore any part of the plant or the tree, the bark.
Yeah.
None of it. There's a reason. And my father and I, we've discussed this extensively. There's a reason for that plant to exist the way it does. Ayurveda has exposed many of that, but there's just so much more still to learn from it.
Oh, yeah. They just left breadcrumbs for us to figure out the rest of it.
And so let's talk about supercritical just really briefly.
Yeah.
That technology exposed some other molecule. So imagine that. There are things today, and my father left this impression with me. There are things that we do not have the technology for today. And he told me, but Shaheen, one day keep working at it. Because there'll be something else that you'll discover. Maybe we haven't discovered the best part of turmeric yet.
No.
What my father patented back in the mid-90s with the 3 curcuminoids, that set off this whole 95% curcuminoids, marketplace. That was just one unique part that he discovered, and he knew that because in the late 90s, about 96 or 97, we developed tetrahydrocurcuminoids. We found the metabolite. Guys, that's white in color.
And that's only become popular in the last 5 years?
If, right? Like,
I mean, how much
I don't
nicer
think
is-
it's popular yet.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Sorry, how much nicer is it to handle white curcumin in a
Oh,
manufacturing
man.
facility?
Oh, my God.
Let me tell you.
But then, are the consumers ready for that, right? Are they going to look at it and go, that's not what I'm taking?
Right.
So the education material has to go there, the proper way to do it. What we get really scared about at Savinsa is that we've discovered something, we've, patented or non-patented, we've manufactured it a certain way, and we've done the safety profile. Okay, great. Somebody else comes along and they do it completely different, which is fine, but the safety wasn't checked. And it only looks the same, but it's not the same. So now we're playing defense suddenly. So there are a few products like that, and we have to sometimes over-educate, not only internally, but our customers as well. But yeah, that's a challenge.
In an era of misinformation, I don't think you can overeducate, brother.
Well, yeah, I think education, we've talked about this several times, that, the technical education is the marketing. And the more you're able to tell that story that, we've done our safety studies, we don't know what so-and-so over here is using as far as solvents or what they're doing with their product. It's a mystery box, but we're not a mystery box, we're reliable. That's one of the things that's going to differentiate you guys even further going forward. And I wouldn't be scared of anyone coming out and doing that kind of stuff because you have the burden of proof. The burden of proof is in your hand, and that's the strongest asset you could hope for.
All right, Shaheen, I gotta hit you with a question that it comes from my heart. When we all lost Dr. Majid, our industry lost an icon. Students lost a mentor. A lot of people felt like they lost their father. But walk me through how that you had to share that loss and that mourning in a very visible and public way. Can you take me through that?
Yeah, he was my greatest source of strength. And the moment we saw his last breath being taken on that machine, you step back and there's nothing. There's just silence, right? It's just silence. So where do I find the strength? He left me with 1,800 employees, 1,800 families I will have to take care of. So you quickly get strong. They become your strength. And I go, okay, this is what we got to do. And, I just start mapping out what we need to do. I was nonstop. I was just like him. I realized that later, after about a year of thinking, I go, I was just like him. He was nonstop. And so that keeps driving me. The employees that we have here, the customers, and how they reached out and how they spoke about the interactions with my father. My father was also a sales guy. He went out and he met customers, and some of those people had called me and said, your father tried to sell me this, and we share stories, and I would tell them. They share those stories with me. I'd love to hear those things. And some of the employees were as old as the company was, 30-some years. And, some of them also decided to retire at that time. They felt it was appropriate. They had, time with my father, and they felt it was time for them to also move on and rest, finally get some much-needed rest. And I would sit with them and hear their stories as well, and bid them the best. The Herculean task of all this, what to do with that. I don't think there's one straight answer today. I think I'm still searching for that answer, and I'll search for it till the end of my time. But that curiosity, that still drives me. The strength of the people that's here drives me. Him and I, before his passing, we spoke very passionately about some of the things he still had left undone.
Yeah.
And that was really sweet to go back through those memories and to hear him. And I challenged him. I think I always challenged him. I was that kid. But that was our relationship. We understood it. That's where he stood, and that's where I stood. But out of pure love and respect. When I think about the last conversations with him, I want to put those things into effect because it matters to the employees and what he wanted for the company. So I look forward to doing that, and that's what I work for. Great question. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I think culturally, again, I really commend Joey and TK for being so open to the idea of how much culture plays into the commercial.
Very much.
At all times. It's not a switch. It's embedded in the DNA, in the company, and the people. When those veterans of the company retire, how do you replace them?
You genuinely can't. And you have to realize that. You cannot replace that. I mean, just, think about the institutional knowledge. Someone walking away after 30 years, all the things that they've garnered. You have to build a system in which throughout their lifetime, you would have had them train somebody else, have them bring other people up. Bringing other people up is, I got to tell you, it's up there on my top 3 models of life.
Yeah.
Right? Moving on from the marketing department that I did and leaving to somebody else, I wanted them to bring up their own style and their own thing. So that when I'm totally out of marketing, it's okay. The company still goes on. Every department head has bring somebody else up mentality. I live by that.
Challenge them to do better. Do a better job than me.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. I truly think my father felt that as well.
Yeah, that same kind of experience.
Because he wasn't, culturally, he wasn't the type to say that.
Yeah.
Outright. But by the challenges he provoked on me, by the conversations in depth he had with me before he passed, yes, I could see that. I could see that he knew, Shaheen, you're the one that would be able to do that.
It's also kind of like a tag you're it kind of thing.
Tag you're it. You know what? That's how I'm going to look at it now.
Yeah. Well, I remember hearing about it. I was at Expo West.
Oh, yeah.
I was at the Sabin's booth.
Oh, man.
I mean, I was just like, oh my God, like this is huge. And it sucked the wind out of that entire convention. And that's the biggest convention that we have in this entire industry.
Yes, sir.
And when that news spread around, everyone was just like the energy in that convention center dropped considerably.
He was monumental, what he put out. I mean, He challenged the industry with it. He really challenged the industry. Did he do great things? Yeah, absolutely. But because he wanted to make it better, I think that's where he stood out. You know, he wasn't about the price per kilo.
No.
And so when he came from that angle, yeah, people just respected it. Maybe didn't buy from him, but they respected it.
Oh yeah.
That's huge.
As a customer of Sabinsa, like it's not so much about that price per kilo, but it's about being the best and having the best data and having the best materials and everything that's going to test out every single time, and having a reliable partner where they're going to provide you all the documentation you need. You're never going to have something that fails the spec or isn't compliant or isn't GRAS or doesn't have a new dietary ingredient notification that's been submitted. Like, all that work gets done here. And there's a standard for this place that always follows.
I'll share a very quick story. So I was invited to a customer meeting. You know, my top sales guy was having a hard time landing this customer. Should have been a no-brainer. It should be pretty easy to land this customer. It was for our C3 complex.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'll tag along. You know, it's fine. You know, I go to the meeting, and you could see the resistance to our ingredient. You could see it was a price issue, and you know, my sales guy did his best to list down exactly what you said from the GRAS, from the C of A, from these studies, the safety. Nothing worked on this customer. So I said, hey, listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time. It's perfectly fine you don't buy from us. Here's what I'd like you to do, though. I would love for you to note down these things that we check for. Because they don't automatically come up on the CFA. They don't automatically come up on our website. But we check for these pesticides. We check for these, et cetera, et cetera. Just make sure your team does that. Because you're going to put out a product that maybe one of my family members or a good friend of mine is going to take. That's all I ask. Really nice to meet you. I can bet you 9 times out of 10, they will think about that part of that conversation, whether they were there or they go to the next company. Yeah, I learned that from Sabinsa.
Well, the industry continues to become the marketplace is getting a little crowded.
Oh yeah.
Okay, compared to when this facility was opened in '93, and since then you've got a lot more players in the game. How does that play for the future? It's a wide question, but specifically targeting evidence-based, efficacy-based marketplace. That genre, as you face more competition, how does that play into what you have to do, and how do you have to adjust?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. Our customers expect that we double down on the science for the legacy ingredients that we've been providing. There's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of other suppliers that come in to play in the same space. But what they expect from us is that we hold steady to consistency and to the standardization that we have. So I make sure that my factories and my people, they produce to that excellent level. And we don't hear or see the noise and shit. We don't want to, jump onto another bandwagon because something else is happening over there. We want to stay true to our core. So that's number one. The legacy ingredients get the utmost attention, so it's perfect every time. The newer ingredients that maybe the marketplace is talking about, and maybe we dabbled in it, we come back to the core ideologies that set us apart to begin with. Do we have safety on it? I'm not interested that somebody else has an ingredient out there and it's fantastic, and I have a raw material source for it. No. I have the raw material source. Did I do my own safety? Did I check off all those boxes that will get filled by a 4.5-page certificate of analysis? If I don't have those things, I'm not getting into that product.
Well, I think that in a way, like, you guys are, I would definitely say that you're bandwagon creators. Like, people jump onto your trends, and that's part of the saturation effect of this market. That the standards that were set by Sabinsa with the studies, with your pricing and everything, people want to try to one-up you guys in whatever way that they can scratch their way to possibly do. And I think that a lot of people target, like, the legacy products for sure. But I think that there's a lot of other niche products that you guys have that maybe haven't reached the spotlight yet, that are going to be things that are really, really interesting. And I've purchased quite a few of these things in the past where I was like, this is going to be a winner in like 5 or 10 years. because eventually the world's going to catch on. And when that happens, like the things that are on your back burner right now that come to the front burner are going to be like the next wave of that saturation. Like everyone's going to try to come up with some sort of like, you know, hyperlongumine or whatever from black pepper or whatever fun things that you guys have that are currently like you're not well known about items. And I think that those are, I don't think you should feel bad about people jumping on the bandwagon. I think you should own it. Like everyone will always surf the wake of Sabinsa, and it's just what you do because everyone always looks to you because you are that kind of authority. And there's a way that you can wag the tail of the entire industry and just be like, you can even run a test and be like, we're going to commercialize this ingredient. We're going to make it safe. We're going to do everything. We're going to put it out there. It's going to come from something totally common. And watch how many people will come up in the wake of that launch and copy. And we'll just do it as a distraction, just to make them go do something else and burn their resources over here.
I think likewise, just to sum up that point, we have some fantastic customers
Yeah.
that look to us to do just that.
I've had you guys do some special request innovation stuff that you've delivered on before. And I thought it was totally unobtainable. And it was 2 specific extracts from pomegranate. And I was like, I need these 2 compounds. And my reps, it was when Dr. Pondy was still with you. And he was like, you have to buy at least 50 kilos of each. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And had it to me within 30 days. And I was mind blown. But I was able to launch a new product, and it was unlike anything else that the market had ever seen before.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
And it's that kind of like flexibility in relationships and I think that's what you're talking about with your customers. Like, you know, sometimes, and we talked about this in supercritical CO2, I don't ask you the specification. You ask me the specification that I want because you guys can tighter up and down exactly what I need, which is a very true thing here.
Yeah, we don't try to imagine what your label looks like. So we need that conversation. Like I said, we have some really great customers that will have that conversation with us. I feel a little bad because sometimes we have customers that don't share what they're up to, and we'd love to kind of have a closer relationship with them, and they can be exposed to so much more what we do.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's an opportunity for that, and as we, and I say that we're almost 40 years into the business, and I still want closer relationships.
Well, you guys recently acquired, can you talk to me about the acquisition of the Finnish brand company in New York?
Yes. It's a company called Nature's Formulary. They've been around, 40 years.
Yeah. The gentleman that started that company?
PKW.
PK.
Yeah, good man. He's a really
Very good man. PK, I want to give you props. I went up to him because I only heard of him, and he lent about 30 minutes of his time and just told me the ins and outs of what he did, how he started. I was just curious. I just wanted to say hi. But it was only after maybe like 2 months later that the acquisition was announced, and I was able to send him give me his number, shout him up.
He's a very gentle soul. So we've been doing business with him. So we've supplied Sabinsa ingredients to his company for years, and he's always wanted exactly what the good companies want: the clinical data, the backup support, the consistency of supply, et cetera, et cetera. It came a time soon after my father passed away. PK also got to thinking, I think it's time, I also kind of rest up and maybe stop the business. Now he doesn't have anybody to pass it on, and I got talking to him, and I said, well, I don't want your business to go away. Let's think of a home for this. And so I created Sabinsa Wellness, and that became our consumer division. It's small, but it's got mighty potential, if you will. And so we kind of rolled Nature's Formulary into that. He still continues to do his business. I don't interfere as much. He's in retail stores.
Right.
He's got his label, and that's where that's where he's comfortable and where he wants his product to be. So the nice thing is that Sabinsa Ingredients continues to go into his product.
But doesn't that become a nice natural incubator for creative retail?
tests, yeah.
Right? You get a guy like Joey that says, hey, I wonder if people would like this. Right?
Absolutely.
Now you got a place to play around like in the lab.
Absolutely. Yep.
Is that how you engineered it? I'm trying to interpret that maybe you have your own playground now.
It's funny, actually, you mentioned that because we had another company called America's Finest.
Yes.
And that stems back to the mid-90s. The couple that had it and ran it also used to buy Savinsa ingredients from us. They decided to retire to Florida, and they offered the company to my father. And if you remember, in those days, it was catalogs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't e-commerce. There was no Shopify or Amazon, not much. But it was catalog sales. And he found it to be a great way if he came out, I think he was selling them Boswellan, but if he came out with Google Lupit, if he came out with Lactospore, he had a home now with America's Finest. So he bought that brand. Very little money at that time, I'm sure a lot of money, but now when you look at it, and he ended up shelving it. He didn't do too much with it. And the reason for that is he got a few phone calls saying, hey, you're my supplier, and I'm a brand that's on the shelf in e-commerce now, but you have your own, so you're now my competitor? And my dad did tell them, listen, there's room for everybody here, and plus, you didn't take my product for the first few years when I had the ingredient. So I need a home for it. The arguments he had didn't work at that time. Fast forward to 2 years ago, I'm looking at the whole situation going, it takes a Savinsa ingredient that I newly introduced 18 months before it'll see the light of the day by a brand company putting it in a bottle. That is far too long to suppress consumers from getting a healthful ingredient from Savinsa.
Right.
I cannot stand that. If we made something and we know it's safe and it's got a good clinical backing to it, why can't consumers get it now?
Right.
So I said, heck with it. I'm going to go all in. And Nature's Formulary was the first move on that.
How much resistance did you get, young blood?
Internally.
Internally, did you have to? I mean, this is that's a bold decision.
Yeah,
it's a bold, courageous. But you earlier you were talking about being in the car with your dad, the Chem 101, being in the car with your dad. Like you've been in situations with your dad where you needed to be bold and courageous.
Yeah.
So here you are being bold and courageous. This is a decision internally. How do you handle that fallout?
It's funny, right? Because no matter who you are in this company, you're always trying to sell out. Right, so I'm back in sales. I'm back in sales with my people.
You're always going to be in sales. Like that's how it is, whether you like it or not.
Sometimes you just need that catalyst to spur the reaction.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
So Shaheen, you were mentioning earlier that there was an IP. You guys your dad learned a hard lesson about protecting IP. Now, just to preface this, India is notorious globally. To serve its people, they will rip pharmaceutical IP and deliver pharmaceutical products at a ridiculously affordable price. And the American government's like, stop doing that. Indian government's like, nope, we're going to do it for our people.
I kind of feel like they're heroes for doing that.
Oh, we are, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're also very good at stealing IP. And so you guys had a Garcinia product.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that lesson?
So that was probably our third ingredient my father produced out of the box, right? So Garcinia Cambogia, he did a safety trial, he did an efficacy study, saw the weight loss, and then boom, Garcinia Cambogia is on the map. Everybody's talking about weight loss. It goes to
Dr.
the Anaheim
Oz.
show.
Dr. Oz,
It
good.
eventually goes to Dr. Oz, right? Some of the studies he quoted, not some, all the studies he quoted on that was ours.
Yeah.
Okay, that being said, let's back up into the mid-90s. We got a request from a company saying, hey, can you supply that ingredient? I said, yeah, that's what I do. I manufacture, I'll supply. Then they flew him out to Mazatlan, Mexico, and wined and dined him and said, yeah, we want to buy your Garcinia, but you only sell to us. Now, imagine this, right? He just left the pharma companies. He's had bad dealings with partners. He's on his own. He wants to make it on his own. He's really trying hard. And now here's somebody telling him, you only do this for me.
In Mexico, of all places.
Well, that was they wanted to just wine and dine him. They're an American company. And they got a straightforward answer. He said, no, I'm here to supply the world. And I'm happy to give you more of the supply if you got the order for it. But I don't want to be tied down. And they said, okay, Majid, okay. They part ways, and the next thing you know, that American company found somebody here in India who knew how we were making Garcinia Cambogia, copied it. That became your Citroen versus Citromax.
Ah.
Like, whoa.
So not to drop the name of the company, I have respect for them for what they did, but that battle of Garcinia was intense. I mean, we had Science, they had Miss Sweden.
It's when the
long
Hardy
did it
Boys.
Well, I mean, literally,
that was the battle. Like Garcinia it raged for over a decade.
And I don't think it would have without that battle. And there's a whole,
Yeah.
we can have a philosophical discussion about that because some people say, hey, if it was just Sabinza, we made it big. No, I think it got big because we were fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were fighting from a Science front, and they were flying down Miss Sweden for the Anaheim show.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Of course, we all turned our badges and took lovely photos. Not the point. The point was we were not going to win that battle. We were not going to win on a marketing front with them. That was very clear.
How did you feel as a marketer in that moment?
I wasn't. I was a kid.
Okay.
It was mid-'90s. So
Not yet.
I'm just witnessing all this going on.
But your dad must have been broken. I mean, like, that's got to be heartbreaking.
Oh, that hurt him to the core.
To concede, even though he was the inventor.
Yeah, that hurt him to the core. So much so, I remember we have a fantastic public relations person, and my dad was really angry at the booth, right, at Expo, and he's like, that's it. I'm going to stop the research. I'm going to take them on. And the publicist goes to my father, Dr. Majid, just go discover the next Citroen.
No.
Go discover the next Citroen. But if those words, if they were not echoed, we would not have Forceline.
Yeah, that's true. And Forceline is still, that's surviving the test of time.
Don't forget, coleus is a pickle. It's a condiment in this country. He found a use for it way beyond a pickle. But it wouldn't have happened if he didn't learn the lesson of Garcinia. But to the point of the IP, though, we had no patent on Garcinia Cambogia. Today we have 510 patents across hundreds of different ingredients. He learned that lesson. If he had just patented the process or the use of it, he wouldn't have had that competition. That competition that hurt him. There's competition that grows you, and then there's competition that breaks you.
Yeah.
And that broke him. And the very next ingredient we had, you can be sure we had a patent on that. And it ended up being the water-soluble version of Garcinia.
Ah.
So that's where we ended up conquering the market. So, we had Citroen K, the potassium version. But then it started. Then the IP just became so robust. And he was the main person for the IP. He wrote down everything. His notes were transcribed into the patent hall. I mean, it was just fantastic. And then there was a department.
Is there a place here that you keep all the patents and frames or something?
Yeah, there's quite a number of frames, but he was also really nice. He let all the Sabinza offices around the world buy their own frames and put it up on the wall.
Okay.
It's really, when you visit us in Utah, you'll see we have a patent.
We're going to have to go do that sometime.
Yeah. So that's the IP story. I mean, that hurtfulness and not doing something or learning the lesson, boom.
But the bounce back.
Yeah, it's break and grow at the same time.
Something else.
Break and grow.
So, also when talking about like innovative things, I wanted to talk because where we're at is the home of Lactospore, Bacillus coagulans probiotic.
Yes.
And we're about to go. I guess if we have time, we can go take a look at the fermenters.
Yeah.
But that particular probiotic is something that I know it because it's in so many beverages, gummies, anything that is like a powder formulation. It's one of the easiest kinds of probiotics to work with because it puts on its little protective jacket like an armadillo, and it will hide out, and it's easy to manufacture with like that. And a live culture is something that could die with exposure to the air or other ingredients or anything like that. They're really tough to work with. But you guys, outside of the herbs and all the different plant material, you've now gotten into this probiotic space in a big way.
So there's a really nice, cute little story of how Lactospore started. So if you'll give me a minute, I'd love to.
Sure.
Okay. So it is the late 90s again, and I don't know if it was the Anaheim show or the Expo, the Supply Side show. One of those shows. He meets with, he's at one of the seminars, and he's hearing about acidophilus and how wonderful acidophilus is. If you guys can go back to that time in the mid-'90s to the early 2000s, acidophilus was it. But you had to use how many billions? Because it was dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Once acidophilus was made, it was just dying. And so you had to encapsulate it really fast. You had to make it into a dosage form really fast. So my father got thinking, why can't we make a room temperature, a stable version of it? And he was kind of questioning the acidophilus guru at that time, and the guru had a feeling that, hey, Majid, don't get into this probiotic business. He did see my dad as a threat, though we had nothing to do with probiotics at that time. We were botanicals at best. But he came back here to India, and there was a Japanese company that was producing a spore-based microbiome. And he said, could I sell that? Could I sell that to my customers? And it turned out that the Japanese company said, yeah, sure. So that's kind of the birth of the Lactobacillus spore genus, it was called back then.
Yeah.
But then the Japanese company decided to shut down the Indian operations and go back to Japan and have it only for them and not service anybody else. And then my dad said, could you teach me? Could you teach me how to make that? Because I think there's a market for this. And they did. Because
they were leaving town anyway.
They were leaving town, but we could also supply them, right? So there could be a mutual benefit partnership there. And we did for many years, and that was fantastic. But we set up this building just for lactospore. And so we set it up with the notion that we're going to really kick Acidophilus's butt because there's something here. Now, it took us a while because everybody was really all about Acidophilus and all these other strains. They didn't understand. What do you mean spore forming? I think the terminology was just way too advanced. You're talking about Acidophilus. And
we're talking about microbiology to the normal everyday human masses. It's not an easy job.
But then also the head of the company is Dr. Muhammad Majid. He wouldn't have the marketing lingo right off the bat.
Yeah, how do you explain to a regular everyday consumer, especially like in the 90s, 2000s, like, hey, there's this whole secret world of bacteria that you're ridden with inside of your guts. And in order to make it work right, you need to eat more bacteria to live inside of your guts. Just that concept alone, an everyday soccer mom or something, they're going to be like, I do not have bacteria in my guts, and send you the other way.
I really think it was the mid-2000s when one of the big yogurt companies really started putting commercials out there and calling their yogurt a probiotic in that commercial. I think that made it felt more closer to home than anything else. But that being said, my father gave the name Lactospore. Then, we started, working on it. What we really focused on was the stability of the product, that it could be not just 1 year shelf life, 2 years, now 3 year shelf life. We focused on the different delivery formats, whether you wanted this in a capsule, a straight powder, if you wanted this in a beverage, etc. So we worked on that all here at this facility. That was really fun, really exciting. Continues to be one of our best-selling ingredients worldwide.
And this is a standalone facility for a single product.
Yes.
Very unique, right?
Extremely unique. I mean, I was sharing a story when I first went through this building, when the pillars were being put up, and they were telling me, this place will only produce one. Whereas we already had 3 factories that were doing 20 plus, 30 plus ingredients, knocking them out every week, every day.
Like, what?
And it doesn't play well. Do one?
It doesn't play well with your economic background, right? Your economics background,
that's
hey,
where
the math doesn't add up.
I fell apart. I'm like, what's going on here? But when I got to know the ingredient and I got to know the care that it needs, that mattered. I think what helped, and we haven't discussed this, was the framework of the regulatory environment that existed outside. Not so much in India because it didn't exist, it's there now.
According to Deshay, there's still really no regulations on
True.
Symbiotic bacteria.
True. But if you look at Canada, if you look at Brazil, if you look at China, Japan, Korea, they set up theirs far more than what U.S. has done. And we cater to their regulatory frameworks. So we always have to be one step above and above. Did it matter to the U.S. consumers at that point? Probably not. But today, when they want to work on different formulations and they want to deliver to different parts of the world, they come to Lactospore.
Yeah.
It's interesting because probiotics is like the long game.
Yeah.
Like just the
It
spirit
really
of that.
is. But it is very much the future.
Yeah.
It's very and proliferating in this field. I mean, I think that there's a place for creating an entire library of spores because they're the most versatile, the most stable. You can put them in chocolate if you want to, and it works out really well. Yeah, like there's no limit to what you can do with spore-forming probiotics.
I'll share another quick story. Just to be purposeful in its stability, every clinical trial that I did for Lactospore, that the team came together and we did, I made sure it was in a tablet.
Yeah.
I crushed it. I purposely did that.
You only crushed a few of them on the outside.
Right. but the point was, I could have taken the easy route and put it in a capsule or given as a powder to the users. But why did I do a tablet so that when the efficacy results come out, you can then be double sure that, hey, that really did work.
Right.
That survived.
Right.
That was
Stress test for microbiome.
It's a little nuanced thing that nobody probably ever picked up. It's like an Easter egg thing that
Well,
all
and
the
it's
trials have.
and it's also a postbiotic study. Just same
look at
time.
that.
Good job. So that works too.
Yeah. So if we're gonna wrap up, like, where can people? I mean, not only just find you, but where can they find Sabinsa? Because there's some people like I'm a nerd in this field, so of course I know who you guys are, but not everybody is going to. So
Well, Joey, before we wrap up, I do have one question to
you
talk
go.
about.
All right, let's
I got
go
one
with it.
real quick. I want to talk about the regulatory landscape in India. It's very important for our, not just American, but for the multinational brands to really understand what's happening here with Fasai.
Yeah.
And just to touch on it, right? You want to explain to us where we are in the origin and genesis of Fasai, and does Fasai have teeth to enforce, and like, are they playing towards that angle? Like, how do you see Fasai influencing and enhancing our regulatory landscape here in India?
Well, I'll say we're a lot better today than we were when we first started. I think there was a lack of leadership and responsibility and understanding of what Fasai was when it started. And where we are today, yeah, they definitely have the teeth. Now, I think private industry should get more involved in educating and letting Fasai and its associates know what to look for. I think that part is missing. Even in the U.S. FDA, as much as we see what we think is FDA, they do collaborate with industries.
Yeah.
Because they are trying to, they don't want to be on the sideline making a judgment and then being wrong about it. Consumer safety is a huge point to U.S. FDA. That part Fasai has to absorb.
Right.
That's probably the one thing I would leave that point with. But I think there's great opportunities in India.
You're optimistic?
I am. Yeah, I am. I have to be. I want to sell.
That's
here
what my dad said recovering from hip surgery. Hey, you ready to rehab? I have to.
Yeah, because there's consumers here that have to benefit from this. They shouldn't be, ignored or not have access to it. So we'll work as a private company to help, put that forward.
Do you guys have, are there trade organizations here in India like there are in the United States that work with, communicating and influencing them?
There are, not to a great extent.
Yeah.
And that's maybe something else that could really help.
That
The
might be
trade
something that
advocacy-
Future Nutra Foundation could be the pioneers in
there's-
India, brother.
That's why I'm asking.
All
There
right.
could be. And there probably should be. Trade advocacy is something Sabinsa believes in as well. So
You guys are
support-
UNPA members?
We are UNPA, we are AHPA, we are
NPA.
The NPA. There's a whole bunch of
CRN.
acronyms. Yeah. So we support them, and they reach out to us when they need help, maybe either in India or even in Europe where we're established. But the rapport that we have and the exchange of information, that becomes critical.
In India, the corporate the corporate and government collaboration, it's pretty big. Am I not right? Like I see that's the difference that allows companies in India to become better at what they're doing.
Well, the government wants their money, so yes, they will.
Is it, okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
they would
but,
definitely cooperate.
but is this a pro-business government right now? Is it
I believe so,
conducive
yes.
to a future that we
I
can
believe
help
so.
go further? And
I believe so. Yes, you're in a pretty good environment for businesses to thrive, and there's more access to things.
Right. That's important for brand owners, I think. Like brand owners should know that the partners that they're having here in India, this is what I believe, with especially with Tyshawn and Green Regimen, the whole idea is to bring American brands to India, not just because of the large consumer. That's sure, you can look at the dollar bills or the rupees. It's not about that.
Right.
It's really about the ability to
industry.
get good products
Yeah.
into the hands of a demographic that's got 650 million people, give or take, under the age of 35. That is a wave of consumers that will absolutely shape the world.
We have a consumer sect here that is identified by the banks in India as upper middle class. and it's roughly about, I don't want to say a wrong number, but it edges towards about 300 million.
Come on, man.
That's the size and population of the U.S., a little under the size and population of the United States. But that's upper middle class. These are people that won't think really twice about some of their
That they will be
habits.
discerning consumers.
Where do they buy supplements?
Where do you buy supplements?
Are they all online?
I make my own, so that's of course probably not the best question to ask me. But yeah, there are online shopping platforms that has come up in the last couple of years. E-commerce has really come up here, and the speed at
These guys just got
Lincoln
at
is amazing.
They got how quick did you get the whey protein?
I've never wanted a 911 phone number more badly in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I downloaded it. I tried to partake
You can't do
in
it on
Lincoln.
Indian number.
You got to have an Indian number. Yeah.
But you got that whey protein at Vita Foods. So we
Yeah.
were with a friend of ours, another supplier, and he's a young kid. He's like 31, 32. He's like hearing them talk. He's like, oh, I really need some protein. He ordered it. By the time we finished lunch, we went to the lobby. It was there in an envelope. He's like, what is that? He's like, that's the whey protein you wanted. 10 minutes.
It's insane.
So that whole system,
DoorDash sucks.
Quick commerce, right?
compared to
Quick
it.
commerce.
that whole system has been really progressing well in India. I mean, I'm shocked because
They've got to be kings by now.
well, you look at in the U.S. 2-day shipping on Amazon. The Prime shipping. I mean,
We
that's
think
great.
we got it
We just got it in
Yeah,
10
we
minutes
got
and
it
we're doing
good.
2-day shipping.
Right, and you heard about they're going to drop it in drones, and you hear about stuff. Then you come to India, and you literally get it in 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're going, what?
How
How does a
this
country
possible?
like India do it?
But where are they getting it from? Where did the delivery guy pick it up from? That network of that nexus of American whey protein, or
If you see the depots that Lincoln has, I mean,
Little distribution centers?
very little. They've blown the door away on the concept of a warehouse. You think that it's got to be like an Amazon warehouse.
Yeah.
No, they took that and they threw it in the garbage and said, that door, that room, can it hold 50 SKUs? Great. When you go into the app and you're nearby that depot, that's the only 50 SKUs you'll see.
That's crazy.
And that's what you buy.
Low
Now you
overhead,
change
big
your
footprint.
region. Yeah. So the technology front was also here, though. Let's not forget. I mean,
Yeah.
Bangalore, Hyderabad. I mean, we
Sure.
got the IT people here, and then you had an idea of throwing away a typical warehouse and just making a storeroom your warehouse.
well, we just saw an IKEA, which is not practical in India, but it is practical in Bangalore.
Yeah,
But not
the
in
major
India, right?
cities.
Like the idea of a big box warehouse. Like IKEA is an anomaly in India.
Right.
But generally speaking, these entrepreneurs are growing up in homes where there's no storage. You don't have tubs here. Like we're introducing a protein that's going to be in a pouch.
Right.
Someone
Yep.
said, "Hey, why don't you make it in a tub? Where are you going to put it?"
Right.
I mean, you can't. There's no storage in India in your homes.
Yeah, because half my home doubles as a blanket warehouse.
And long and behold, something else will go in that tub after that way is finished. Anyway,
Well, that's
and
it,
so then
yeah.
it's
We were
not
talking
really-
about that too.
Yeah, so inventive, TK and his branding, inventive packaging. In India, packaging will not end. Like you get a nice package, you'll put your fennel seeds in it.
Oh, yeah.
You'll put, you can put anything in it.
They'll
Put
have their
your
own
wheat
product.
powder. We could probably talk to you so much about other things. I mean, this is a conversation I think Shaheen has just scratched the surface.
Oh no, I love it. You had a finishing something you wanted.
Well,
to
yeah,
add.
because usually we end it with like, where can people find you? Like your website, your socials, LinkedIn, everything.
Yeah, you can find me on Seat 3K anytime in the air. No, I have the privilege and honor of getting out to the various Sabinsas. So we got offices in Europe, Japan, Korea, Australia, Vietnam, China, India, of course, South Africa, Brazil, Canada, and then U.S.
Wow. I didn't know
So-
you had that many
So
offices.
we've been a little busy.
Yeah.
So what I end up doing now is I interface a lot with the leaders of the various Sabinsas. Of course, I can do it over Teams and phone call, but I like to get out there and spend a week with them, visit customers, and see what's happening in their world. It is not what's happening in the U.S. It is not what's happening. What Vietnam is doing is not happening over in
Not
Canada.
at all.
So, and I need to experience that. And so that's where you'll most likely find me. There's a couple of trade shows I hit up. Sabinsa.com is a great place to see. We got new things going on.
Full product catalog, which is so vast.
Yeah, info@sabinsa.com if you ever want to email and, hey, I'm looking for this ingredient. I can't find it. I have a question about this. And so we're putting some more technology like AI chat box into our website. I guess we all have to do that now.
You guys have a YouTube channel where you guys do like.
There's a YouTube channel where we got videos that we've done with media companies, and we'll put there, and especially with being on the farm and some of our factories, we do that. But otherwise, we try to get our salespeople out as much as we can to visit our customers and Yeah.
Amazing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing here, and I definitely appreciate that you came and sat down with us for this. We really,
No,
This was a busy day for you. You had a very busy day. He had a very busy morning. And then
Yeah, this morning I had a board meeting, and then, so as soon as that wrapped up,
all good with the board meeting?
Yeah, no, the board meeting was
Very
great.
good, man.
Had a quick lunch, then came down here, and I beat you guys, so I was really happy that I got here before you. But no, the privilege and the honor is absolutely mine. Thank you for coming out and seeing us. I think what's really important is that you got to see the people that really make the difference.
Yes.
Listen, I'm here to service what? I'm here to service you, and you're able to see that.
yeah.
You know, the people make the difference. They really do. And so I'm humbled by the people that, work at this company. They serve this company. They served under my father. They worked for Savinsa. I'm super happy and thrilled I got to share that with you.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys next time on the Suppworks Podcast.